Hello YouTube, my name is Rachel Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm going to be discussing the effects of the eclipse that's happening on the 19th of November 2021. This is a lunar eclipse and it's happening in the sign of Taurus at 27 degrees of Taurus. In this discussion, I'm going to focus on the degree of the eclipse, which is 27 degrees of Taurus, and the other signs, particularly the fixed signs. The fixed signs are Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. These are the houses or the signs which are going to be highly impacted by this eclipse. So if you don't have your birth chart, your natal birth chart, I suggest you go to astro.com to get your free natal birth chart so you can find where these houses are in your own chart. Information I'm going to give you in this video is going to be important for the next 6 months. It's going to help you understand the energies and what's unfolding over this period. 6 months from now, we're going to have another eclipse on the opposite side in the sign of Scorpio, around 25 degrees of Scorpio. This is where the energy of this eclipse is going to begin to cool down. So this information is very, very important. Save this video. Information in this video will help you understand all the energies that are going to evolve. It will help you understand the energies that are going to transpire or evolve for the next 6 months. Sometimes people feel like eclipses don't bring any change. Of course, they're not going to affect everybody. You have to have an angle, a planet at the degree of the eclipse in order to feel it very intensely. Even if you don't feel it intensely, you are going to feel some type of changes within the house where the eclipse is happening. So this is essentially your Taurus house and the opposing house of Scorpio. Some of you may have an event happen or come to culmination right on the day of the eclipse, or perhaps a week before, or even going back a month before the eclipse. And for some people, it happens a month after the date of the eclipse. If you don't experience any type of event a week before the eclipse or a week after, pay attention to this date. Pay attention to 10th of December. 10th of December is when Mars, the planet of action, the planet which is on the south node of this eclipse, is going to reach the eclipse degree. When Mars reaches 27 degrees of Scorpio, he's going to trigger this lunation by an opposition. So he's going to reactivate the eclipse. So if nothing happened at the eclipse, the week before, the week after, you are going to have an event a day or two before December 10. And if you're born on December 10, you better pray that you have good karma, because you're going to have this energy of Mars triggering this eclipse for a whole year. Your whole solar year is going to carry this hot energy of the eclipse. This is going to be a life-changing year. It's going to be a very transformational year. And if you were born on the day of the eclipse, on the 19th of November, this is going to really affect you very intensely, especially if it's your sun. Your whole identity or your standing in society is going to need some type of revision or change in direction. But for that, if you really want to know how this is going to affect you, I suggest you book a reading with me. Go to rachel-mayo.com and book a reading, and we can go through what's really going on in your chart, because it's very different for every individual. Every person has different points, different angles. Find 27 degrees of Taurus where this lunation is happening, and the opposing side where the moon is in Scorpio, 27 degrees of Scorpio. Also find 27 degrees of Leo and find 27 degrees of Aquarius, which is the opposite sign of Leo. Leo and Aquarius are both going to be squaring this lunation. They're going to have a tougher experience at this lunar eclipse. So what is a lunar eclipse? A lunar eclipse happens when there is a lunation close to the nodes. Is the North Node and the South Node. At this particular eclipse, the South Node and the North Node are still on the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius. This is why this eclipse is not a total lunar eclipse. It's a partial lunar eclipse. It's still very close to the nodes. The nodes are currently transiting at around 1 degree of Gemini and Sagittarius. Since the nodes are still in the sign of Sagittarius and Gemini, that means anybody that has anything at these, so that means if you have anything between 1 to 3 degrees of Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo and Pisces, you're also going to feel this eclipse intensely, simply because the nodes are still in Gemini and Sagittarius. I suggest that you watch this whole video, because in this discussion I'm going to discuss how the eclipses are going to affect you according to the placements of your natal planets. If perhaps you have any of your natal planets conjunct this eclipse, you're going to be affected very intensely. So I'm going to explain how this lunation is going to affect you if you have a natal planet at 27 degrees of Taurus, or perhaps on the opposing side of 27 degrees of Scorpio. So watch all the way till the end. I will also explain how this I'm also going to go into how this eclipse will affect you if you have your angles, perhaps your MC, your IC, of course your ascendant and your descendant. I will explain exactly how this is going to affect you. It's going to be a very positive eclipse, simply because it is an eclipse with this, simply because it is an eclipse of the North Node. The North Node tends to have Jupiterian qualities. The North Node usually brings you something positive. The South Node eclipses, on the other hand, is a releasing point. So this particular lunar eclipse, even though it's going to bring massive endings and surprises for some, is also going to push you towards your destiny. So something is waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. This is a positive eclipse. It has many other challenging aspects. We're going to go through all the aspects so you understand the degrees of these challenging aspects. So it's really essential for you to have your birth chart as I go through this eclipse video. Eclipses represent portals of transformation and awakening. They tend to bring fated events into our lives, and these fated events push us to evolve towards our North Node, our destiny, where we're supposed to be. Events that will also help us evaluate the growth and evolution of our soul growth. I'm sure everybody has heard about the conjunction of the fixed star Algol. Algol is very tightly conjunct this lunation. Unfortunately, this fixed star has a very negative connotation. Nobody's going to get decapitated, or perhaps the heads of our states or of governments will fall, or perhaps a situation that's been ongoing and has needed to end or die is going to be cut off at this time. It's going to be cut off at the head. Sometimes we do actually need to cut things off at the head so that they end and die forever. That is negative things in our life that we've been holding on to. We have to remember that the fixed stars are fixed. So they tend to hold on to things, possessions, energy, anger, pain, and all types of other emotions, other types of negative emotions. So if those emotions are cut off at the head, it is essentially a very positive thing. So I'm going to choose to look at this negative fixed star. I'm going to look at the more positive interpretation of this negative fixed star Algol. A lunar eclipse is essentially a full moon on steroids. It has the power of 3 or 4 full moons. So it's going to highlight and illuminate whatever has been hidden, or whatever situations that you've been holding on to and hoping that they will change. It's going to illuminate those situations, and you're going to realize at this lunation that you can no longer hold on to these situations. You have to let them end. You have to cut the head off. You have to let go. Full moons are a time of culminations, illumination, and it's also a time of fruition. So if you've been working on a project for a very long time, this is probably the time that this project is going to conclude. If you've been pregnant, this is probably the time that you're giving birth. You could have been working on a creative project. This is probably the time that it's going to come to an end. If you've been holding on to a bad marriage or some other type of relationship, because Taurus, Scorpio is the axis of deep intimacy, commitment, other people's money. This is where two souls meet and bond. So if that bond has not been working out for a while, this is the time that is just going to naturally come to an end. One of you is going to want a divorce or a separation at this lunation. This all depends in which house this lunar eclipse is falling in your natal birth chart. And if you want to know how this lunation is going to affect you according to your ascendant sign, I suggest you watch this video. I don't know if it's on this side or that side. A lovely friend of mine called Melanie, who I've known for a few years and actually taught a basic astrology to, she's going to be joining this channel. I would love for my subscribers to embrace her and welcome her to this channel. She's going to be doing videos on this channel. So if you want to know how this lunation or any other lunation is going to affect you according to your ascendant or which house this eclipse is falling in, I suggest that you watch her video. She's very good at intuitively reading the energy through tarot and astrology. Please welcome Melanie. Okay, so let's get back to the lunar eclipse. Whenever there's an eclipse, it's always important to look at previous eclipses. So I would like you to go back 18 and a half years ago, around 20th of November 2002, there was an eclipse at 28 degrees of Taurus. What happened then? Those same themes are going to get repeated. They're not going to turn out exactly the same way, but it is the same house and the same degree that is being activated. The previous one to the one in 2002 was in 1994. What happened at the lunar eclipse of November 18, 1994? This eclipse degree was 26 degrees of Taurus. So that is another 18 and a half years back. These cycles repeat themselves every 18 and a half years at around the same degree. Before 1994, there was another eclipse on November 18, 1975. Can you remember what happened then? Oh, perhaps you should ask your parents. And before that, ask your parents, or maybe you are here, it was 1956. So November 18, 1956. November 18, 1975, November 18, 1994, November 20th, 2002. Those are the cycles that these eclipses have happened, and they happen in the same houses. So the themes are going to be very, very similar. This particular eclipse is special in that it's going to be the longest lasting eclipse of the century. There's not been an eclipse that lasted this long, approximately around 3 hours or perhaps more, in 500 years. So this eclipse is essentially beginning a whole new era in our Taurus houses. And what does Taurus rule? Taurus is the natural second house of the zodiac. So Taurus rules over how we make a living. It rules our money, how we make our money. It rules the family that we make with another person. Not the family that you're born into, the family that you choose to make with a husband, a boyfriend, or your best friend. That is a Taurus, that is a second house family. Taurus also rules over our meat, our cattle, beef. So there might be changes in that area as we move. So there also might be some changes in that area. Taurus is currently being transited by the planet Uranus. Uranus brings shakeups. It brings change. It brings change whether we want it or not. We also have to remember that Taurus is a fixed sign. Taurus is a sign that has to have it their way, and they want to keep things the same. And Uranus is in that sign, wanting to shake up this house. Uranus essentially wants to revolutionize our money systems, what we love and value, and also our food. Most people might not realize this, but Taurus is the second. Most people might not realize this, but Taurus also rules over speech. Taurus is the second house or rules, the second house rules the mouth. So essentially what we put in our mouth and what comes out of our mouth. And what comes out of our mouth sometimes is not what people want to hear. So as you can see, Uranus is bringing a lot of changes in the internet, and Uranus does especially since Uranus also rules technology. One of the great values in America is that we had freedom of speech. And yes, we are being censored, and not just on the internet, but there's certain things you just can't say anymore without getting cancelled or demonetized or other types of punishments. So yes, Uranus is bringing some type of change in the house of Taurus, which also rules over our speech. And why we're having these censorship is because Uranus has been squaring with Saturn all year, and they're going to have their final square next month at the end of the year. So essentially, change is coming in these areas whether we like it or not. Our money is going to change, our food is going to change, rules around what we love and value, how we make our money, all that is inevitably going to change. For better or worse, we just have to wait and see. The sun is transiting the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is a natural 8th house of the zodiac, and the 8th house rules over intimacy, sex, death, and rebirth. It rules over taxes, other people's money, mortgages, inheritances, sudden windfalls, perhaps lottery wins for some. The sign of Scorpio also rules over our sexual organs. It also rules poisons, frozen water, sewers, anything to do with excretion, anything that's dead and needs to be excreted or let go or buried is ruled by the sign of Scorpio. This is important to take note of because the transiting nodes are going to switch into the Taurus Scorpio axis, with the North Node being in the sign of Taurus and the South Node being in the sign of Scorpio. This is going to happen sometime in January 2022. But this eclipse is essentially bringing up all the themes that are going to be active for the next 2 years. This eclipse is essentially lighting the path to these eclipses. So let's look at what could possibly happen in the sign of Scorpio, where the South Node is. The South Node is other people's money, banks, big institutions, lending institutions. We are going to slowly begin to let go of those systems. And since the sign of Scorpio also rules sexuality, our sexual organs, something is going to come up about reproduction or our sexuality or sexually transmitted diseases. Because the sign of Scorpio is where the South Node is. Essentially, it's going to be excreting. And when Scorpio excretes, it does not excrete flowers and unicorns. It excretes what is dead, sewer, feces, anything that needs to be eliminated, disease, poisons. Those type of things are going to be highlighted over the next 2 years. The sign of Scorpio is symbolized by the Scorpio. And what does the scorpion's tail have? The scorpion's tail has a deadly poison. And when it stings you, it kills you. And when it stings, and that sting will probably kill you. We also have to realize that when we talk about the signs of Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus, we're talking about fixed energy. So essentially, when the nodes come to these fixed points, they're releasing energy that's been fixed, energy that's been stuck, energy that's been hoarded, energy that's been held for thousands and thousands of years, past lifetimes over past lifetimes. I truly believe the nodes is a point where the universe or God or whoever you want to call it releases and deals you your karma, whether it's good karma or bad karma. Unfortunately, with the sign of Scorpio holding the energies of the South Node, we just don't know what it's going to release. So the energy, and we just don't know what it's going to release. We have to remember that Scorpio is the sign of revenge. I'm sure all of you know how Scorpios can be. Just don't ever cross a Scorpio. They will not probably strike you right away, but they will hold that energy, maybe perhaps even for years. They will hold that energy until they're sure that they can absolutely take you down, and they can absolutely take you down and make sure that you stay down. So we don't know what kind of karma is stored in the scorpion tail at this time. We don't know what's going to be released at the south node of the scorpion tail. I guess we'll see how all this is going to evolve. But these are the issues that are going to come up on this axis. So if we have to look at who's going to be very affected by this lunation, it's the fixed signs, as I mentioned earlier. Leo and Aquarius are actually going to be affected by the square. So if you have any points or angles in these signs, you are going to be pushed into action. Squares and oppositions push you into action. They bring circumstances or situations in your life where you just have to react. You have no choice. So expect to make some major decisions that are going to change the whole trajectory of your life. So if you have any planets, points, or angles at 27 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, these points or planets are going to be activated these points or angles are going to be activated at least for the next 6 months. So this video is essentially important for you to keep around for the next 6 months, because you can always refer to it. Let's look at the chart over here or over this side. I never know which side it's going to be, but one of the sides. Because I'll be looking at the chart down here. As soon as you look at this chart, the T-square is very apparent. It's glaring. The squares and oppositions are represented by the red lines, and those are the challenging aspects. The more positive and harmonious aspects are represented by the blue lines, and those are the sextiles and the trines. So let's start with where the full moon is. The full moon is in the sign of Taurus. This is a North Node eclipse. North Node eclipses tend to be more positive. They will probably eclipse something in your life that you need to let go of, something that's reached a culmination, or something that is dead and expired. They will eclipse that situation out, but push you towards your future, your destiny. So North Node eclipses are more Jupiterian in that they're positive and they do give you something. And this is where the moon is, in the sign of Taurus at 27 degrees, at 27-14 degrees of Taurus. North Node is in the sign of Scorpio, where the sun is, and this is the point of a release. So the house of Scorpio is where we're all going to have to let something go in order for us to move towards our North Node, our true destiny. So let's examine the signs, the degrees, and where the planets are placed. Sign of Taurus, we still have Uranus that's still transiting there for a couple more years. Uranus is making a very positive aspect to Venus. Uranus is trining Venus. This aspect is going to push us to be innovative and to try new things. When it comes to things that Venus rules, what does Venus rule? It rules over our relationships, our money, what we love and value, our families that we make with another person, the food that we eat, our speech. So this can push you to try and make money in different ways that you've never tried before. Uranian ways, perhaps cryptocurrency. It could push you to date somebody who you never thought you'd date. Perhaps somebody of a different race, somebody from a different social background, somebody of a different religion, someone of a different social standing. So you are going to be rebellious in some way when it comes to these issues. This is sextiling Mars. Mars is very powerful on the South Node because Mars is transiting his own sign of Scorpio. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, and the other ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. Mars is currently also opposing Uranus at this lunation. This opposition was exact a few days before the lunation, but is still in effect. The Mars opposition Moon aspect is a very irritating aspect. it's an annoying aspect. So some people are going to be pretty ticked off and angry at this time. And the moon represents the people. So something that is transformation, or something that has to do with death, rebirth, or other people's money is going to transpire at this lunation, and it's going to make the people very angry. We can just look at what's going on in the court system and the rulings. I really do try and stay away from mundane astrology or whatever else is going on in the outer world. I try to concentrate my astrology on you. But the moon does essentially represent the people, and the people are very, very angry at this time, and perhaps even somewhat rebellious. Mercury is also transiting the sign of Scorpio and is widely sextiling Pluto, who's transiting the sign of Capricorn. So this is big transformation, positive thinking, positive, deep transformation. Mercury is also exactly trining Neptune in the sign of Pisces and is about to go direct within a week or so. So Neptune is also very, very powerful at this time. This is a positive aspect. So whatever happens at this lunation, there is some type of positivity through some type of healing information, some type of healing or calming information, that is going to be released at this time. I'm only going to stick to the more exact aspects. If I have to go through every little aspect of this lunation, I'll be talking for hours. However, I will take the time to look at this particular transit of the asteroid Juno. Asteroid Juno, just briefly so you know what it's about, is the asteroid that represents our committed relationship, our love relationships, our committed relationships, our love relationships, and in some situations, our committed agreements to the other person. Juno is freshly transiting the sign of Capricorn. I believe Juno has a 4-year cycle around the zodiac. So essentially, Juno has not been here for 4 years, and he's coming back to the sign of Capricorn. Juno is here to make agreements, solid agreements of partnerships and commitments to the other. I say solid because in the sign of Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn. Saturn only approves of something that is solid, something that is long lasting. So I'm mentioning about this Juno because Juno is at some point going to conjunct Venus. And if you watched my past video on the last lunation, you will see that I talked a lot about Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde is going to be even more important this year. Venus goes retrograde in the same sign every 8 years. So the last time Venus was retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, I believe, is in 2014. So refer to what happened in 2014. It's not going to be exactly the same, but you're going to encounter similar themes. And I don't think Juno was in Capricorn then, or perhaps it was, I'm not sure. But Juno is going to conjunct with Capricorn. So Juno is going to conjunct with Venus at some point. So this essentially is talking about financial agreements or love relationship agreements, partnerships, marriages, something that is real, something that is solid. So this particular Venus retrograde is going to be very special. Issues regarding females, because females are ruled by Venus. So females are going to be propelled into positions of power in our government. They're going to become authority figures. So if you are a female and you've been trying to break through a career that is mostly ruled or done by men, this is your breakthrough moment. This is your time to go for it, because Juno is supporting signing agreements in this house of Capricorn of government, authority figures, our bosses, our standing in society, how we're seen in society. Capricorn is the natural 10th house of the zodiac. The 10th house is essentially the MC. So yes, women are going to be propelled towards the MC. Women are going to be standing on top in the next 2 years. I heard that our president had to go for colonoscopy on the day of the eclipse. So essentially Kamala Harris was president for about 6 hours. They signed over the presidency to her. So look at that symbolism. Essentially a black woman was president of America for about 6 hours until this procedure until the procedure the president was going through was completed, and then she signed over the presidency back to Biden. So what's going to happen in the next 2 years? Who knows? This is a place to watch because this eclipse is also essentially on Biden's sun. Biden has his sun around 27 degrees of Scorpio on the south node of this eclipse. So let's watch and see. Let's wait and see what happens. But if you are a woman and you're trying to break through, this is your moment. I'm going to evaluate the effects of the natal planets by conjunctions. And these conjunctions have to be within 3 degrees before or 3 degrees after the activated point. The degrees we're looking at here is 27 degrees of Taurus, and that is by conjunction. 3 degrees before or 3 degrees after. And on the opposite side, we're looking at 27 degrees of Scorpio, 3 degrees before or 3 degrees after of 27 degrees of Scorpio. This is an opposition. You're going to feel this eclipse as people opposing you, or you're going to be dealing with the other at some point during this eclipse. And 27 degrees of Aquarius, you're going to feel it with the pressure of the square. You're going to be pushed into action whether you like it or not. And 27 degrees of Leo, you're also going to feel this lunation by square. Squares push us into action. Squares make things happen. So if you've been sitting around and not taking action towards a certain goal, you're going to be pushed into action. Situations are going to end or culminate. Let's look at this degree. What do you have on those degrees? I'm going to start with the sun. The sun represents our standing in society. So this could be how we're seen in the world. Are you a married person? Are you a teacher? Your occupation? It also represents our authority figures. It also represents our energy, essentially our health. So all these situations are going to be highlighted, and how it's going to affect you is according to how your sun is aspected in your own natal birth chart. So expect situations around your job, your bosses, authority figures to come into light, and perhaps your health. Since your sun represents what you do for a living, so perhaps some of you will end a job because you've been offered a better position or some task, or perhaps some of you will end a job because you want to go and start your own business, or perhaps you want to start working from home, or perhaps you want to stay home and do something else with your life. For some people on the negative side, you could be dealing with some health issues or issues related to your father or important men in your life. And if it's your moon at this highlighted degree, your moon represents your deep innermost feelings and your home, your ancestors, your mother, and your deep hidden emotions. So all these things are going to be highlighted. So perhaps if you had some emotions that you were suppressing, they're going to come up at this time and you're going to have to deal with them. And if you had issues with your mother, they're going to come to a culmination. Everything's going to come to a head and issues are going to have to be discussed, and perhaps there are going to be some real big endings there. If your ancestors, your grandparents, or even your mother has had ill health in the past few years, unfortunately, this also could be a time of culmination where things come to a natural end. So this can happen and tends to happen at a lunar eclipse because the lunar eclipse carries feminine energy. So essentially, we're dealing with our feminine side. So essentially, we're going to deal with the feminine energies in our life. And the moon represents the mother, the home, and deep emotions. So those things are going to come up. You're going to have to deal with these situations. Since the moon also rules the home, perhaps there'll be some major changes in the home. And the moon also rules fertility. So perhaps you'll be welcoming a baby into the home at this time, or adding a family member. Maybe your mother is going to come and adding or losing a family member by a new birth, or perhaps your grandparents or your mother are not going to be living with you anymore. Those that have been having troubles in the home, whatever issues that you've been having in the home, are going to probably come to a head and a culmination at this. Time. Perhaps the lease in your current apartment or your home is ending now, and you'll be moving to another home. So essentially, you'll be ending your existence in essentially you'll be ending your existence in a place of living and starting anew in another place. For some people, this could be a time when they choose to leave their home country and go and live in a foreign country. If your moon is at 27 degrees, this eclipse is going to bring major endings in your home area, with your mother, with your ancestors, and it's going to bring issues of fertility and childbirth, or additions or exits from the home area or the family. If it's your Mercury that is at 27 degrees, you are dealing with your immediate environment. You're going to have changes in your immediate environment. Perhaps you're going to have some changes with your neighbors or your siblings. Something that's been going on for a few years or perhaps 6 months is going to come to an end, and is going to come to a culmination and perhaps an ending at this time. And if you've been working on something quite positive with your neighbor or your siblings, perhaps this is the time you're going to see the results of whatever project that you are working on with a sibling or a neighbor. Mercury is also the sign that rules over learned skills. So if you were training, you were undergoing some type of training, learning some type of skill, this is the time that you could finally conclude that education and receive your certification for that training. Mercury also rules your name. So perhaps some of you will go through a name change because perhaps you were married and now you finally decided to change your name. For others, it could be that you just change your way of thinking. Perhaps you had a different way of seeing things or perhaps you had a different way of looking at things or believing things or processing information. Perhaps this is a point where that old way of processing information is going to change and you're going to adopt a new way of thinking. If you're an author and you're writing a book, perhaps this is the time that your book is going to finish and you're ready for publication. And if you have your Venus at 27 degrees of Taurus, this is going to be very, very impactful, because as I've highlighted, Venus is the ruler of this lunation. Venus is very important. Venus is going to be going retrograde. Venus is going to be going retrograde next month in the sign of Capricorn. We're actually already in the Venus shadow. So Venus is going to be highly active for the next 2 years. So if you are a Taurus or you have your Venus at 27 degrees of Taurus, it's going to be monumental. Venus in the man's chart rules the wife. It still also rules all the other essential Venus ruled themes: money, our job, what we love and value, but essentially it rules the wife in a man's chart. So what did you begin in the past month? Did you meet somebody special in the past few weeks, and perhaps you just looked at it as something casual? This could be the love of your life. This could be the woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, because this is what eclipses bring. They bring things that were promised, things that were destined to happen. And this is a North Node lunar eclipse. It's bringing a culmination to old relationships, to old things that we've been holding on, and is bringing new people or new things that are supposed to lead us towards our destiny, our North Node. So pay attention who you meet, what you come in contact with, what kind of business propositions are offered to you around this time. And if nothing happened, nothing substantial happened or transpired with this person or that offer, look to the 10th of December for Mars to come and reactivate this eclipse. Something is definitely going to happen around that time. So this is how Venus is going to impact you. You're either going to find a new means of making money, if you're a female, but since you're either going to find a new means of making money, a new long-term life fated partner, a karmic partner, a soulmate, a twin flame, something really fated. This is really monumental. If it's Mars that you have at 27 degrees of Taurus, Mars rules our energy, our vital energy. And in a woman's chart, it can rule a hot boyfriend. Not the one that you want to marry, but the one that you just want to perhaps have an affair with, or a short-term love relationship. Because another planet in a woman's chart is the planet that rules the husband, the desirable husband. But some women prefer the Mars type of husband. So if that's what is suggested in your chart, also, just like with Venus, pay attention. Who did you meet in the past month? Or who are you going to meet in the weeks coming ahead? If you haven't met them, you'll probably meet them when Mars, the planet that is on the 27th degree, reaches the 27th degree. Essentially, you're having a Mars return, and Mars is very, very powerful in its own sign of Scorpio. So this is also going to be highly monumental. If you want to start a project or some type of action or some type of exercise regimen that requires a lot of energy, this would be a great starting point, because it's going to eclipse out whatever is no longer needed, whatever is holding you back from you taking this forward action towards your North Node. So this is also going to be highly monumental. Use this energy wisely, because Mars energy can be pretty volatile and accident prone, especially because it's opposing Uranus at this lunation. So keep that in mind. And it's also opposing the moon, so you might stir up people and get some people hot and angered at this lunation, or perhaps other people will get you, or perhaps other people will trigger you and you get to be hot and angry and hot-tempered and become aggressive. So that is possibly another danger. And if your Jupiter is at 27 degrees of Taurus, this is going to be really big. We also have to remember, I forgot to mention in the introduction, that Jupiter is going to square this lunation. So wherever Jupiter touches is expanded. Jupiter likes to blow things up. So if something really positive happened at this lunation, Jupiter is going to blow it up and make it bigger. Jupiter is a planet of excess. So if something really bad unfortunately happened at this lunation, Jupiter is also going to blow that up. So everything is going to be exaggerated. So this is kind of the positive and the negative side of Jupiter aspects in a square. So back to if it's your Jupiter that's at 27 degrees of Taurus. Jupiter in a woman's chart rules the husband, the desirable husband that's going to put you on the right path, the husband that your parents approve of. That is Jupiter in a woman's chart. So essentially, if your Jupiter is getting activated in your chart at this time, you meet the love of your life. You can meet your soulmate, your twin flame, your karmic partner, your fated partner. Jupiter is your husband. Jupiter is also the planet that represents good luck and children, also creativity. So if your Jupiter is activated, this could be the year. In the next 2 years, you could possibly have children. You will get lucky in this area and begin something, perhaps a creative project. So your Jupiter is going to be activated. Expect some luck and love, a lifelong partner, and perhaps some children. This is going to be really positive. If it's Saturn that is at 27 degrees of Taurus, Saturn is the planet of karma. Saturn is the ruler of the sign Capricorn, where Venus is currently transiting. And remember, Venus is the ruler of this lunation. So your Saturn is really going to get activated. Saturn is a planet that could bring some type of discipline or restriction in your life. But this discipline and restriction is something that is possibly what you need in order for you to progress and go towards your North Node or your destiny. Saturn also rules our standing in society, so it could also bring a change in the direction of your career, or it could bring a change with your bosses or authority figures in your work area. For some people, a situation like perhaps your boss is eclipsed out of his job and suddenly they need somebody to replace him. Perhaps you've been working really hard and putting in long hours at work over the last few years, and your bosses recognize this and they decide to give you a promotion or a substantial raise. It could go either way, or you become the boss. You know, Saturn gives you things which are solid and long lasting. So perhaps at this point, at this lunation, you will be rewarded in some way, especially if your natal Saturn is well aspected. Saturn is probably the last planet I'm really going to go in depth at, because these planets have revolutions around the zodiac, time revolutions that we're actually alive for. Most of us at least are. Pluto has a 284-year cycle, and it's only going to stay in, and and we're about to have our Pluto return, so it stays in one place for too long. There's no point of me going through the other signs because we're not going to experience them, except in the near future, perhaps, except in the near future in the sign of Aquarius. Uranus is the planet sitting at 27 degrees of Taurus. You would probably have to be 84. So I'm really not going to go too much into that. Pluto has a 284-year orb around the zodiac, so I'm not going to go into Pluto. And Neptune also has 184 years or something like that around the zodiac, so they stay in one sign for a very long time. We're not vampires, so we did not go through Pluto in Taurus and we did not go through Neptune in Taurus. I don't think so. So we'll end at Uranus. Uranus has a 7-year cycle around the zodiac. So if you're 84, you are essentially having your Uranus return in the sign of Taurus. This position is important simply because Uranus is transiting the sign of Taurus, where this lunation is going to be. And Venus is also about to go retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So Uranus is the planet of revolution, rebellion, and unexpected change, technology, and a need for freedom and independence. It's transiting the sign of Taurus, where this lunation is happening, and is also in positive aspect to the sign of Taurus, who's transiting the sign of Capricorn. The only aggravating aspect is that it's opposing the sign of Mars, who's also powerful in the sign of Scorpio, because Mars rules Scorpio. In this particular T-square, Uranus has lost some power. Uranus, first of all, does not like being in the sign of Taurus. Taurus does not like change. Uranus wants to rebel and bring change and technology and new ways of doing things. And fortunately, he's sitting in the sign of the lunar eclipse and is also communicating with Venus, who is the ruling planet of Taurus. So in that way, Uranus will have power. This aspect becomes powerful if we use it. Trines and sextiles are very positive aspects, harmonious, yes, but these are energies that just flow easily. If you don't put effort, if you don't use this energy to make something happen, to make something solid manifest, this energy could just pass you by. So be willing and daring to go after what you want when it comes to what you love and value. Things concerning money, love, relationships. Be willing to date out of your race. Be willing to date somebody unusual. Be willing to do something spontaneous. Be willing to find a different way to make a living. Be willing to try different types of money. Be willing to invest in different types of investments as in cryptocurrency or other types of futuristic types of money that I don't even know about. This lunation is encouraging all of us to be rebellious and to do something totally different. Change is the only constant. We have to change. We have to try new things in order for us to evolve. This is the way we're going to get to our North Node, and the North Node is going to be in the sign of Taurus. So change is coming, whether you like it or not. If this eclipse is happening conjunct to your ascendant, your Taurus rising, you have to really watch this whole video, because everything that I mentioned in this video is very, very important to you. Not only because it's your ascendant, because the sign of Taurus is going to be highlighted for the next 2 years. Your ruling planet Venus, who's transiting the sign of Capricorn, is going to go retrograde on the 19th of December this year for about 4 months. So your ruling planet is essentially going to be in your 9th house for the next 4 or 5 months. This is very important. You are the sign that's going to basically push humanity towards our next stage of evolution in life. So this happening to you is, so the ascendant is essentially you, your body. Ascendant is essentially you, the way you present yourself to the other person. So when the ascendant is activated, it also activates the descendant, because the descendant is across from the ascendant. So your partnerships, your marriage, your business agreement, anything that you do with the other person or how the other person sees you is also going to be highlighted and become very important at this time. When the North Node is transiting in your own sign, you have to put yourself first. You have to make decisions based on what's really important to you. If you're a type of person that's been wanting to have perhaps a sex change or come out to the world as a gay person or whatever else that you want to announce to the world, this would be a perfect moment to make this announcement and have people see you in a different light, in a way that you want to be seen by society. This is the perfect time for you to make these changes, and it's best that you do these changes before your ruling planet goes retrograde, because if you do the changes during the retrograde, you're possibly not going to like the results when Venus, your ruling planet, starts to move forward. And if this lunation is happening conjunct your IC, that is the 4th house, this is the heart of the chart. This is your home, your emotions, your heart, your deep hidden emotions, even emotions that you hide from yourself. They're going to come up. If the lease of your apartment has ended, this is the time you're going to make some major moves. If you've been having long-standing issues with family members, your mother, your grandmother, this is the time when things are going to come to a culmination. If your ancestors, perhaps your grandparents or your mother, has been ill for the past few years, things could come to a natural ending at this time. Another thing that could happen is old ancestral secrets could come up. They could be highlighted at this time. They would come up perhaps if you didn't know that you were adopted, this lunation is going to bring the truth out. Or perhaps you're going to find your birth parents. Things which are life-changing, monumental things happen when angles are activated. This lunation is happening conjunct to your descendant. That is, if you're Scorpio rising, which I am a Scorpio rising, the Taurus Lunar Eclipse is 2 degrees away from my descendant. I am a Scorpio rising. This lunation could bring a new collaboration. As you heard earlier, I did introduce my dear friend Melanie, who was my first student that I taught basic astrology. Started this collaboration on the day of the eclipse. It was not planned. It just happened naturally on that day. So that's something that you could experience, new collaborations, anything that has to do with the other. For some people, they could meet the love of their life. The descendant is a very important point when it comes to committed relationships. We're talking a marriage partner. This is not your casual romance that lasts a couple of years and it's over. When the descendant is activated, you're talking about a soulmate, a twin flame, something fated and something that's probably going to last a long time, especially since it's in the earth sign, a fixed earth sign. Fixed earth signs tend to hold on to things. So it means that the marriage or the partnership is something that's going to last possibly a lifetime or a very long time. So I'm really looking forward to that. On the other hand, the descendant is also the area where we have our known enemies. So perhaps if there's been an ongoing court issue, perhaps a divorce or some other type of argument or lawsuit with with a business partner, it's going to come to a culmination at this lunation. And since you're Scorpio rising, you have Mars, the planet of war and action, transiting your own sign, where there's the stinger and the poison of the scorpion tail. Scorpio rising is very, very powerful at this lunation. They are going to take down their enemy at this lunation. Their enemy is going to be cut off. So watch out who you pick your quarrels with. They will take you down at this time. Stay away. If you've been single for a long time, this is time for you to get out. Your partner is probably looking for you at this time. You should be out there looking for him or her while the light of this lunar eclipse is still around. Perhaps during the last few weeks, some of you may have met somebody who felt really destined and fated, and maybe perhaps nothing really came out of that. Well, you will find out when your ruling planet, the planet that brings action, the planet of war, triggers this lunation when he reaches 27 degrees of Scorpio. He's definitely going to bring some action, and something is going to transpire, and you are going to know who this person is at this point, or possibly over the next 6 months. But most likely, I think it's going to happen pretty soon, because Uranus is aspecting Venus, the ruling planet of this lunation. Venus is also in sextile with the planet Mars. These are both very sexual planets. They encourage mating and meeting up with a love partner. So if it hasn't happened before, if it hasn't already happened, it's going to happen pretty soon. Keep your eyes open and always look your best. So if this lunation is happening conjunct your MC is the highest point in the zodiac. This is the point where you cannot hide from society. This is the point where society will see you. So this means, where are we seen? We are seen by society at our job, our standing in society as a married person or as an authority figure of some sort. This lunation conjunct your MC could bring a major change in your career or your standing in society. You could end a chapter of being overlooked at your job. This could be the time that you receive that promotion. Or perhaps some of you have been trying to start your own business. This is the time that you go out there and announce that you're going to start your own business, or perhaps you've already started it. This lunation will end things that have not been working and push you in the direction of your future towards the things that are going to actually work and carry you for at least and change the direction of your career for a long time to come. Because as I said earlier, Taurus is an earth sign. So the changes that transpire in the fixed signs, the energy tends to stick, and it will stay fixed for a very long time, perhaps for a lifetime or perhaps for just several years. It's not something that's going to break down and change anytime soon. It's something that's going to stick. So if you're experiencing this eclipse in a more negative way, just keep in mind that this energy is here to propel you towards your North Node, the future of where you must go. So whatever is being eclipsed at this time is something that was destined. It's something that you were supposed to let go at this very time. And when something is eclipsed at a lunar eclipse, it doesn't come back. If something ends, a relationship ends, your partner wants a divorce, you get fired from a job, you have a major breakup, there's no going back. Once it's eclipsed out, once it's taken out by an eclipse, it's cut off. Especially when it comes to an eclipse that's conjunct a malefic fixed star like Algol. This situation is dead. You have lost. It's not coming back. Don't beg. Don't try and negotiate. Just keep moving forward because your future lies ahead. This is a positive eclipse in that it's going to take out something that's been dead. You've just been holding on to that situation. It's dead. It's gone. Let it go so that you can be propelled towards the North Node where your future lies. It will hurt and hurt for a while, but you will move on. At some point, you might even be grateful for this eclipse because maybe this ending is exactly what you needed to get you to where you need to be, to your future, to your destiny, towards your North Node. So do not despair, or do not lose your pride, do not beg. Let it go, let it die, let the eclipse it out. When this energy eclipses what's no longer working, it opens a door so that something else can take its place. Something else that's going to be, something else that's fated, something else that was meant to come into your life, something else that is meant to fulfill your destiny, something else that is actually meant to fulfill your destiny on a soul level. So just let go and look forward.